The morning of April 16, 1947 started the way morning started at the port of Texas City. Longshoremen arrived early, dock workers took their positions. The SS Grandcamp, a French liberty ship docked at Pier O, had been loading cargo since April 14, ammonium nitrate, 50-pound bags of it, stacked in the holds by hand. The cargo manifest called it fertilizer grade. It was a gift from the United States government to France, meant to help European farmers rebuild after the war. By the morning of April 16, the Grandcamp held 2,300 tons. Just before 8 a.m., someone smelled smoke. The fire, when they found it, was in hold 4. Longshoremen tried a gallon jug of water and 2 fire extinguishers. Neither had any effect. The smoke deepened. Someone sent for the Texas City Volunteer Fire Department. Then the captain of the Grandcamp made a decision. He ordered that no water be used to fight the fire. He was concerned about ruining the cargo. That decision would kill more people than any single industrial event in the history of the United States. At 9:12 a.m., the ammonium nitrate in the Grandcamp's holds detonated. The explosion was heard 150 miles away. It registered as an earthquake on seismic instruments in Denver, Colorado. A mushroom cloud rose 2,000 feet into the morning air. 2 small planes passing above the port were knocked from the sky. A 3,000-pound anchor from the Grandcamp was blasted 1.5 miles away. A 15-foot tidal wave rolled through the harbor, swept a steel barge onshore, and carried the dead and the injured back into the turning basin as it receded. All 27 members of the Texas City Volunteer Fire Department who had arrived at the docks were killed in the initial explosion. They had been standing at the head of the slip fighting the shipboard fire when it went. One fireman had stayed behind to answer the phone. He was the only one left. Across the slip, the Monsanto Chemical Company plant took the full force of the blast. 105 of the 450 workers on the morning shift died. Texas City, a port town of 15,000 people, was catastrophically damaged within seconds. The dock area leveled, oil storage tanks ruptured and began burning. Burning shrapnel rained down on industrial areas across the city for several minutes. And the worst explosion of the day hadn't happened yet. The SS High Flyer was docked in the adjacent slip to the Grandcamp. Nobody was thinking about the High Flyer at 9:12 a.m. There was too much else to think about. But 2 men eventually went aboard the High Flyer in the afternoon, searching for injured crew members. They found the cargo ablaze. They reported it to someone on the harbor front. The message apparently went unheeded for several hours. Around 11 p.m., tugboats attempted to pull the High Flyer away from the docks. Despite cutting her anchor, they couldn't move her. They fled the area around 1 a.m. 10 minutes later, at 1:10 a.m. on April 17th, the High Flyer exploded. Witnesses said the second explosion was more powerful than the first. The High Flyer's holds contained not only 1,000 tons of ammonium nitrate, but also 2,000 tons of sulfur. The second explosion destroyed what remained of the dock infrastructure that had survived the first. It happened in darkness, when the dock area had already been evacuated, so fewer people died, but the damage to the harbor was catastrophic and total. By the time the fires were extinguished on April 18th, at least 581 people were confirmed dead. The exact number will never be known. 63 victims were so badly damaged that they were never identified. They are buried today beneath earthen berms in a memorial park in Texas City, a short walk from the 3,000-pound Grandcamp anchor that lies in the grass where it landed. Their names are unknown. The harbor floor held everything that had been on those ships, and nobody who went down to look at it publicly described what they found. Ammonium nitrate. The Army Corps of Engineers was involved in the harbor's reconstruction planning. The reconstruction required understanding what was on the harbor floor, what wreckage, what cargo residue, what structural damage to the harbor basin itself. A dive team went in. The team was led by a man named Raymond Carl Pruitt, a civilian diver contracted by the Army Corps of Engineers in late April 1947. Pruitt had experience in harbor survey work from his time in the Pacific during the war. He assembled a 6-man team. They entered the Texas City harbor over 6 days between April 28 and May 3, 1947, working the turning basin and the area surrounding the former Pier O. Pruitt's team filed a report. The report was submitted to the Army Corps of Engineers and simultaneously to the Department of the Army. That report has never been made public. What the report contained is not known from any document currently in the public record. What is known is what happened in the years that followed. In 1948, 8,485 people, victims, survivors, and bereaved families of Texas City filed 273 suits against the United States government under the Federal Tort Claims Act, the new law that for the first time allowed citizens to sue the federal government. It was the largest civil action in American history at that time. The government's defense was straightforward. The acts and omissions that led to the explosion, they argued, were discretionary functions of government, decisions made by federal employees in the exercise of their duties. The Federal Tort Claims Act explicitly exempted discretionary functions from liability. The government had not acted negligently in any way that fell outside that exemption. The plaintiffs argued the opposite. The government had manufactured the ammonium nitrate, arranged its shipment, inadequately labeled it, and failed to warn the port authorities or the ship's crew of the specific dangers that quantity of that material in those conditions posed. The case eventually reached the Supreme Court of the United States as Daylight v. United States. In 1953, the Supreme Court ruled for the government. The 8,485 plaintiffs received nothing. Congress subsequently passed a private bill in 1955 that granted $17 million to 1,394 victims and families, a fraction of the plaintiffs, and a settlement that worked out to roughly $12,000 per family. The government's harbor floor survey report from April and May 1947 was not entered into evidence in the Daylight case. Here is what the harbor floor would have held. The Grandcamp had been at the surface when it exploded. The force of the detonation went in all directions, upward, outward, and downward. The downward force struck the harbor floor directly, and what it left there was the physical record of what had actually been in those holds. Cargo distribution on the harbor floor after a blast tells investigators not just what was on a ship, but how it was stored, whether the configuration matches the manifest, and whether additional materials were present that weren't declared. The ammonium nitrate aboard the Grandcamp was listed on the manifest as fertilizer grade. The physical characteristics of ammonium nitrate as a fertilizer and ammonium nitrate as a military explosive are not identical. Military-grade ammonium nitrate is processed differently. It behaves differently under investigation. A harbor floor survey conducted by trained divers using the investigative techniques of 1947 would have been able to distinguish between the two. Prewitt's team was in that harbor for 6 days. What they brought back, the samples, the photographs, the descriptions of the harbor floor's condition, went into a report that has never been released. The captain of the Grandcamp was Henri Mohone. Captain Mohone ordered that no water be used on the fire because he was concerned about damaging the cargo. Ammonium nitrate, as a fertilizer, is damaged by water. Ammonium nitrate, as a military explosive, is not affected by water in a way that would change its explosive capacity. Why would a ship's captain protecting military-grade explosive cargo be more concerned about water damage than a captain protecting fertilizer? The concern about water makes sense for fertilizer. It makes less sense for anything else. The captain survived the explosion. He was off the ship at the time of detonation. He gave no public statement. He returned to France. His account of the fire and his order regarding water was provided through the official French maritime investigation. The records of that investigation are held in French maritime archives and have not been cross-referenced against what American divers found on the harbor floor. The port of Texas City was rebuilt after the disaster. When it reopened, it was limited to a single category of cargo, oil products only. Ammonium nitrate was never again permitted in the Texas City harbor. This decision was made before the Daylight case reached the Supreme Court, before Congress approved the 1955 settlement, before any public accounting of what had happened on April 16 and 17. The official reason given for restricting the port to oil products was safety. Prewitt's report on the harbor floor was submitted in May 1947. The decision to restrict the port to oil products was made in 1947. The sequence has never been officially explained. The Texas City Memorial Park sits a short walk from where Pier O used to be. 63 burial berms, 63 victims whose identities were so completely destroyed by the explosion and the harbor water and the 2 days of fire that they could not be matched to any missing person. They are there today. The harbor they were killed in has been surveyed at least once by people who knew what they were looking for and filed a report about what they found. That report has never been entered into any court record. It has never appeared in any declassified archive. It has never been described by any person who participated in its preparation. Raymond Carl Pruitt continued working for the Army Corps of Engineers in harbor and river survey work until 1961. He gave no public account of the Texas City dive. His employment records show the assignment. They do not describe the findings. The harbor floor survey from April and May 1947 remains unreleased. The 63 unidentified victims remain under their berms. The port handles oil, and the question that the report might have answered, what was actually in those holds, what the harbor floor showed about the configuration of the cargo, and why the government fought so hard against 485 families before Congress finally settled for $17 million in 1955. That question has no public answer. The harbor is still there. The report is not.